A MAGA couple in Georgia has a couple of businesses that have not been doing well since Trump was sworn in. His tariffs have been really rough on their businesses, and they're apparently questioning their support for Donald Trump and for the Republican Party. And I love to see people actually changing their mind based on changing circumstances. So I want to focus on this couple for a second. This is Jesse and Carter Meadows of rural Georgia. They're like historically mostly Republican, although Jesse had voted for Obama in the past. And interviewed, they said that they liked Trump's outsider messaging. And I'm going to try not to be too hard on that, considering that he is a politically connected billionaire for literally decades who has already served as president. But okay, sure, outsider, that's fine. And that they haven't liked the inflation they experienced under Joe Biden, which we know is true of tens of millions of voters. One other factor that caused them to support Donald Trump is that they wanted the Epstein files to be released. So you can probably see where most of this is going.
It really shouldn't be that hard to understand and comprehend Trump's outsider messaging unless your head is so far up your ass that, well, yeah, your butt cheeks are on your shoulders. Now, here's the deal, folks. Trump is an outsider for sure because he's not accepted by Democrats because he used to be a Democrat. Hell, even the hosts on The View turned their back on him. He is the most hated politician in history when it comes to the mainstream media, and no other Republican has ever been as hated as President Trump. The raid at Mar-a-Lago, the assassination attempts. If you don't consider President Trump to be an outsider because he's a billionaire and was once president, then it says more about you than him.
So they wanted Trump to improve the economy, but so far that hasn't happened. The phone that used to ring in their businesses apparently sits mostly quiet because one of their businesses is like things like flowers. And they say that customers are still reluctant to spend on an extra like flowers in small town Georgia. A box of fake berries from China recently arrived at the shop with a note explaining that they cost 17% more because of Trump's tariffs. A lot of the things they import, I'm sure, will be. The Carters also run a funeral home that's also having some issues. Apparently tariffs are pushing up prices for one of his suppliers, and Carter isn't sure how long he can hold off raising his own rates. The tariffs, he said, seemed unplanned and childish, and I think that he is onto something there. And apparently it's not just this couple, because in new polls, a quarter of conservative voters disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy.
Well, this had to be a hand-picked interview, or at least responses fed to by the host here, the interviewee, the proctor here, perhaps, maybe, because I don't know how anyone can say that Trump's tariff plan was unplanned. I mean, this was a campaign promise. If I recall, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like everybody knew that.
If a country tells me, sir, we like you very much, but we're going to no longer adhere to being in the reserve currency, we're not going to salute the dollar anymore, I'll say that's okay. And you're going to pay a 100% tariff on everything you sell into the United States. And we love your product. I hope you sell a lot of it into the United States, but you're going to pay 100% tariff. He will then follow it up by saying, sir, it would be an honor to stay with the reserve currency. That will be like just playing. That's not even chess, that's checkers. But you don't have listen to this. You don't have other people that can talk that way.
And the whole business model of flowers and berries, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's an extremely discretionary business based on a want more so than a need. And granted, when businesses usually begin to backslide and fail, business owners will typically choose to point the finger somewhere besides themselves, or really and truly circumstances outside of their control. And I don't really consider myself to be any different. The views on my channel have been reduced. Subscriber counts growth has been a little bit slower than before. And so I could easily say, well, it's Trump's fault. I could easily say it's my competitor's fault. I could say it's YouTube's fault and the algorithm's fault, versus saying, oh, well, maybe I've just kind of been slacking. Maybe I haven't been making videos as good as I used to. Or better yet, maybe it's just the market. People's interests change, whether it be from watching or even just clicking on my videos to deciding on whether or not they want to spend their hard-earned money on flowers and berries from China.
As tariffs upend business and lower income Americans cut back their spending, there's also, in the non-economic front, we brought up Epstein. A lot of MAGA people are angry about that. Apparently, Jesse and Carter, that couple, were sitting in a living room one day when Jesse saw a reference on Facebook to a Trump True Social post where Trump allegedly said, their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bull-ass hook, line, and sinker. And Jesse turned to her husband and said, it's gotta be fake, but they looked it up and it, of course, was not fake. And briefly, Carter felt ashamed of his vote. Jesse was angry. She was MAGA, she decided, but MAGA wasn't synonymous with Trump. And I said at the time, what a strange strategy, Nina, that you know how much your base cares about this thing. And for you to say that they're being stupid or disloyal for caring about the thing that you and so many people in your administration have for years been telling them is crucially real. And now you're insulting, spitting in their face. It was such a weird political strategy.
That's such a weird content strategy, but it's the spin because it's context. It's like we were watching Iron Man 2 the other night, and there was a scene where Rhodey was in front of like a Senate or council or some committee, and he was like, you know, me reading this out of context really doesn't truly explain what was meant by what was being said.
7, paragraph 4.
You're requesting,
Please read page 57, paragraph 4.
you're requesting that I read specific selections from my report, Senator?
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that I was going to be testifying in a much more comprehensive and detailed
I
manner.
understand. A lot of things have changed today.
You
so
do
if
understand
could just
that reading a single paragraph out of context does not reflect the summary
Just
of
read
my
it,
finding.
Colonel. I do. Thank you.
Very well. As he does not operate within any definable branch of government.
And obviously, the person who requested this read had an objective. They had an agenda. No different than what we are seeing here on this video. However, at the time, I believe President Trump was stating how more important other issues were than Epstein, considering he was hosting like a 3 or 4 hour press briefing, maybe impromptu, as even Caitlin Collins from CNN highlights President Trump being the only president to behave in such a way. This is a compliment, folks.
It's different because Trump is such an accessible president that, like, if he's just swearing in the ambassador to Greece, like, typically that wouldn't be a newsworthy event if President Biden or any typical president was probably doing it. But Trump's moments, anytime the camera's around and the reporters are around, it can turn into a press conference. And so you never go into the Oval thinking, oh, this is going to be a quick, we call them sprays. It's where you go in, basically a photo op, and then you leave. Because Trump will swear someone in and then he'll turn to you and say, you know, any questions? And he'll take maybe questions for 45 minutes. And so you have to, like, I always keep a running list of questions on my phone.
Okay.
Because you never know when you're going to run into him or when he's going to start taking questions. And so you can't just have 1 or 2. Like, you have to have like 10 ready to go.
Because you said the word typical president, right? Not your typical president. Typical president was swearing in someone from Greece, like we would know. Is that because of predictability?
So Trump is my first president that I ever covered, and I covered Biden as well. And so I can compare it to him. But even with President Obama, you know, there are these moments in the Oval Office that everyone has come to know because you see them on TV so often.
Right.
But when you speak to reporters who covered President Obama, he almost never responded to shouted questions. It wasn't his thing. He didn't, you know, he would have his moments with world leaders and then you would leave the Oval. Trump kind of upended that when he came into the White House. And sometimes presidents are press averse. Trump embraced the media. I mean, he did it for decades as like this New York mogul.
Sure.
And so he just had a different approach to the press and always has, long before taking office. Most politicians are not very press savvy. It kind of depends on who it is. I think Trump always understood the value of a camera and a microphone.
This is a compliment that I would consider puts President Trump more so in the category of outsider. However, not only is this person here, I don't know, on the damage report, hung up on the Epstein files, or at least these Trump voters who now regret their vote hung up on the Epstein files, but so is Dick Durbin.
Quarrel with you is to read somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. You won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
However, we will carry on and not get too sidetracked here. But I do want to point out how, hear me out here, folks, especially if you're a business owner, perhaps maybe an employee of a small business, and your business owners aren't focused on improving their business, but instead following gossip, listening to far left, and even going so far as engaging in conversation with far left Trump deranged syndrome infected Trump hating podcasts, you might want to find a new job. And if you're that business owner, then you might want to figure out a new way to make money, because obviously you're not focused. Your priorities aren't on what they should be on. No government or administration should kneecap your business, Rivian. When you structure your business to be solely supported off of the U.S. government, that's, I don't know, that's you. If the government, keep you fed and keeps cutting the checks, this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, that's really, hear me out, folks, a waste of taxpayer dollars, because everything that goes through the government, through its traditional channels, is wasteful. And Bill Nye, the science guy, coming in here, flapping his gums, talking about NASA this, NASA that. Don't even get me started on the amount of money that is wasted by NASA to then leave astronauts stranded in outer space.
The Trump administration's plan to cut funding at NASA is facing backlash, and also leading the charge today is one of the nation's most beloved science educators, Bill Nye, the science guy. He and more than 300 other science advocates rallied here on Capitol Hill to urge Congress, in their words, to save NASA. The White House plan would slash NASA's science funding by nearly half, a level that scientists warn could have tremendous consequences for space exploration, but also for U.S. economic growth and national security. Much of the agency's work is already halted, with the shutdown keeping some 15,000 NASA employees home and furloughed tonight. My source tonight is the aforementioned Bill Nye, CEO of the Planetary Society, the largest space advocacy organization in the world. And it is so great to have you back here on The Source. And also, you're here fighting for this because you really believe that this would be detrimental if this goes through.
So if we cut NASA budget in half, science budget in half, that's pretty much ending it. It's pretty much done. When all these technicians, scientists, engineers have to get other jobs, you can't restart these things. Now, just economically, we have spent at least $23 billion over the last couple decades exploring Mars alone, let alone all these the outer planets. Everybody knows the expression black hole. Everybody knows Big Bang. That's from space exploration. Now, furthermore, the China National Space Administration is going to land people on the moon probably in the year 2030, 4.5 years. And it's going to be, for the older viewers, it's going to be another Sputnik moment where the United States eyebrows go up. Oh my goodness, the other side has got some amazing space capability. And just mission for mission. If you go to the Planetary Society website, I have a chart I prepared earlier. If this were a cooking show, I'd say I prepared earlier. And just the green is what the Chinese National Space Administration is planning. The red and yellow is what the U.S. is planning to cancel. Now, everybody, the first Trump administration was all into space. They were going, we're going back to Mars, we're going to do these things.
Space Force.
Yes, well, Space Force, that job had to be done. Understand that the NASA is a civilian administration, but its relationship to the military, of course, is stronger and stronger. And for you students, the Space Shuttle bay, the cargo bay, was configured to handle military satellites. But all that aside, you don't want to cut NASA funding, and you don't want to cut NASA space in half. It will just end these programs, and this will lose our international competitiveness. And if we stop looking up and out, what does that say about us? It's not good. Whatever it is, it's not good. And it's certainly not consistent with how the United States has gotten this far.
And if you say voting for Kamala Harris will stop hurricanes from happening, how does that make you look? What does that say about you?
As we often call it, has no plans to address climate change, no plans for long-term dealing with these sorts of problems. If you have young voters out there, encourage them to vote. People say, what can I do about climate change? If we were talking about it, associating it with big storms like this, that would be really good. But the main thing is vote. Thank you.
And Bill, very quickly, how much of an impact do you see climate change playing in all of these explanations that you've given us? How much do you see climate change as being a part of that?
Oh, it's no question, everybody. Look, in climate science, everybody has been studying this for years. Everybody has been commenting, scientific papers have been written about how warm the ocean is around the Florida Peninsula. And it's this warm water that is driving these storms and enabling it to have to intensify so quickly. Everybody, be careful out there. Let's get through this.
Bill Nye, I thank you so very much, my friend. Really appreciate your time.
So what argument that you've made to lawmakers has been the most, which one breaks through the most? Is it showing them that chart of here's what China is doing and what we're trying to cancel, what we're not going to be doing?
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. But also note well, name me some states. Alabama, that's a good one, a great one.
Georgia, some would say.
Some would say, some might. Florida, Texas, Georgia, these are very conservative states, and they have a lot of space activity, a lot of NASA, Louisiana, a lot of NASA activity in each of these states. And so one might expect, indeed, that Congress would push back, and Congress is pushing back. And thank you, House of Representatives and Senate, they both sides have bills that reject all of these proposed cuts. A question, though, for you, the hard-hitting investigative reporter, is whose idea was this to cut NASA science in half? It is a sliver. It is barely noticeable piece of the the budget pie. It's really a remarkable idea.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the argument that some critics made when they cut USAID, which was, if you really want a cut of the federal government spending, like you'd go to the Pentagon or you'd look at certain things like that. Bottom line, if a lawmaker is listening tonight and is like, or someone at the White House is listening, what would your argument be to them?
My argument would be the U.S. Constitution, now available in paperback, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. Congress is to promote the progress of science and useful arts.
And only then to be rescued by a private company, not relying solely on their revenue and income from the government. Yeah. All right, y'all, let's hit pause for a second because this matters and it's really important. We talk a lot on this channel about taking control of your life, making smart choices and not letting the system overwhelm you. And if you are interested in saving money, specifically on your Medicare, then make sure you give our friends at Chapter a call. But when it comes to navigating Medicare, it can feel like you're wading through a swamp of total confusion. And I want you guys to really, really pay attention here, because it's come to my attention that most seniors are not on the best Medicare plan. They're either overpaying for the same coverage they could get elsewhere, or they don't have the coverage they need in an emergency. Chapter can review your options in under 20 minutes. It's fast, it's simple, it's easy, and it's free. Plans, coverage, costs, deadlines, you name it. And that's where Chapter steps in. They're not just another company. They're the real deal when it comes to free Medicare help. Chapter's team of advisors has helped thousands of people across the country find the right Medicare plan, and they do it with one goal in mind: putting you first. If you're already on the best possible plan, they'll tell you they're unbiased and they're purely here to help folks, seniors, save money on healthcare, on average $1,100. And if you're not on the right plan, they'll help you switch, even if it's to a plan that pays them nothing. Again, unbiased, folks. This is unique and unlike any other Medicare provider out there. And this is exactly why we love Chapter so much, because they're literally just trying to help people. No fees, no pressure, just honest guidance to make sure you're covered without breaking the bank. Big insurance companies have their own agendas, but Chapter's got your back, fighting to get you the plan that works for you. So if you're approaching Medicare age or helping a loved one figure it out, don't go it alone. Call Chapter today at 270-467-2426 and start getting the clarity you deserve. Chapter works for you, not big insurance or the government, and there's no pressure, just honest, free advice from professionals who know Medicare inside and out. Because at the end of the day, protecting your health and your wallet, well, that's not just smart, it's living life on your terms.
What do you think?
It's funny how that happens, and my heart does go out to this couple. President Trump ran as a populist. And if he really, really in his heart wants to be the greatest president, then that populism would overtake him more than the type of hatred that has overtaken him and also members of his administration. And so the fact that the hard way, this couple had to find out that it was all fake, that's quite stunning for them.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand where they're coming from. I'm really sad that this is happening. Hopefully it opens their eyes and they will share their story with other folks so that there is a type of awakening, John. That is really what we need.
I can show you something that ain't fake. I can show you something that's all too real, an awakening in more ways than one, as there were 18 illegals crammed into a sleeper cab, busted at a DOT truck stop. And that's real shit right there.
Are you by yourself?
Yes, sir.
There's no one in the cab?
I mean, no.
There's nobody in the cab?
Sure.
Okay. Can I take a look?
I mean, if you want to.
Yeah, kind of want to. Can you stand here for me?
Yes, sir.
The what?
There's people in the cab.
There's people in the cab?
Yes, sir. Hey, listen. I'm trying to be honest with you.
Call for BP.
How many are they?
¿Cuántos son? ¿Cuántos no hay arriba? 18, I guess.
About 18, Sergeant.
That is a heat sensor being triggered, law enforcement acting, Border Patrol being called, and President Trump making good on promises made, promises kept. And there should be no confusion. There should be no, question about it. It shouldn't be like, oh, I didn't know, it seems unplanned. No, this shit was planned. It's not so much Project 2025, for which, the left loves to throw out there and get people all riled up about. But, I can't blame President Trump for doing the things that he said that he was going to do. I can't blame President Trump for, for instance, people not wanting to buy flowers from a business. Like, Have there been any other changes? Did the flour company like make any other changes that may not make it so that people want to buy from them? Like, there's so many questions that are unanswered and so many variables to just sit here and say and pinpoint all their problems stem from voting for Trump and they now regret it. That seems kind of stupid.
In this country. Sad.
Yeah, and I'm really sad for their businesses. I'm sad for the people in the town that the things they're like, this is not a thing that just hits liberals.
Do we really want to talk about how many businesses were fucking wrecked? How many lives were ruined, lost during the Biden administration, all thanks to a fucking jab? Oh man. Don't get me started on that one. Don't get me started on that one. But we'll carry on.
They believe, John. That's that they believed.
I know. I feel bad. They were lied to. And I really do think Trump is doing a lot of terrible stuff that I think will hurt him in the next election. But the tariffs, I think, are like the biggest because it's so needless. He's just choosing to do this, screwing people over on the core issue of the 2024 election. He's like, no, let's have more
right. He'll be all right, John. But people like that couple, they will not be all right. They're gonna get hurt.
Like I was saying, when Elon Musk was doing his doggy stuff and he's like, it's time to tighten the belts. Billionaires never tighten the belts.
Never.
They're not going to suffer. None of them are. Zuckerberg's fine. Soros is fine. Elon Musk is fine. Trump's fine. No, it's us. We have to tighten our belts. And they're the ones tightening it for us. They're squeezing our belts around us.
It's collateral damage and they don't care. Again, pawns, they're playing in our face. And when we have working class solidarity in this country, John, across political ideology, baby.
Yeah.
That's when the real magic is going to happen in this country.
Let's try that out.
It's that's the new talking point now that I'm seeing a lot more with Democrats and Bernie Sanders and socialists and Zoran Mamdanis and you name it. And it's the billionaires versus everyone else. If you're not a billionaire, then you're one of us. And the billionaires never suffer. The billionaires are the ones who actually employ people who have the ability to even go out and buy flowers. But don't get me started on that. In fact, if you want to continuously make money, start a YouTube channel, create a podcast, start peddling lies like these folks here that we have seen before, and we will see plenty more of moving forward as it is being created and published, but it will be talked about and discussed and broken down here for sure. And I'm going to give it to you straight. And because, people are buying that. They're not so much buying flowers anymore, but they are buying the lies and the BS and the nonsense that feeds into President Trump bad. Not so much Democrats good, not so much Kamala would have been better, because at the end of the day, I don't give a shit what anybody has to say. Even if you don't like Trump, you cannot sit here for 1 second and say that Kamala Harris would have been a better choice. Period. I've got one more I want to show you guys. If you enjoy these videos, hit that like button, subscribe, share, help the channel grow. Really would appreciate it.
Up, America, the state of people's finances here in America is absolutely pitiful.
I've followed this guy, and he's a big-time Trump supporter. But what I don't understand is about every day he makes 1 or 2 videos about just how horrible the economy is and how hard it is for him to get by. And he just, like a couple of days ago, he lost his job. But essentially, just how terrible the economy is become a regular running theme on his channel. He talks about it a lot.
Oh, yeah. And much like the conversation, the chat we had this morning over coffee, the other keyword here, the other trigger word is going to be cult. So if you support Trump, you're in a cult. MAGA is a cult. If you don't understand how the economy works and you're still in favor of Trump, cult. Cult stands for can't understand logical thought. And this other one here says, where'd it go? Oh, here it is. It's a cult. All those soybean farmers voted for him. Yeah, so brace yourself, folks. This is the new weird.
Yet he is still completely supportive of Donald Trump and his policies. He was very supportive of removing.
And I really don't mean to continuously jump in and interject here as we're trying to watch and react to this. I want to give you more of what he has to say, but I do want to point out how typically it's the Democrats who will then turn their back on each other, stab them in the back. For instance, Kamala Harris stabbing Joe Biden in the back, stealing the election race, being appointed instead of nominated, and then losing to President Trump, and then writing a book about it to talk shit about her party, about her, President Joe Biden. It's like that's what Democrats do. Okay. So, to say, oh my God, I can't believe that such and such still supports Trump after blank and blank. Well, I can because we are logical. We have common sense. We do realize that, there's a give and take. It's an 80-20, maybe 90-10, maybe 51-49. But as soon as we don't get our way, we don't just throw our hands up and start setting our Teslas on fire or giving them away or trading them in for a Tahoe.
Consumer protections. The one thing that we have in this country that shields us from the power of big corporations, the one thing that we have that gives us any kind of comfort or relief or potentially mitigate the horrible things they will do to us just because they can. He was completely supportive of Donald Trump removing all of that. He's completely supportive of Donald Trump scrapping massive energy projects across the country because they're renewable energy, solar projects and wind projects, things that will quickly bring new power generation online at a time when we are suffering with power generation and people's electric bills are doubling, sometimes tripling.
I think this is actually interesting. It's kind of funny because as my daughter is getting older and she's becoming more aware and having conversations about the world and politics and current events, I have to provide the evidence and proof to share with her for her to then make her own opinion, form her own opinion, rather than being told what to believe by social media or just not knowing, for which I would have to assume that this guy just doesn't know or is being influenced by social media and is completely unaware behind why the Consumer Protection Bureau was a complete crock of shit and why it needed to go. This is actually a strategy put in place by Democrats to name things opposite of what they actually are, so that when, in theory, Republicans try to eliminate them, they sound like the bad guy, even though the Consumer Protection Bureau didn't really protect consumers. It really only lined the pockets of folks like Elizabeth Warren. Where on the flip side, anyway, we could talk about all the misnamed bills, for instance, the Inflation Reduction Act, which didn't actually reduce inflation, but I'll spare you.
You're set to introduce a bill this week to entirely eliminate this agency. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, the CFPB has been an albatross of an agency. It's been unaccountable to Congress. It gets its funding directly from the Federal Reserve. Most people don't know that.
So look, this goes back to what we were talking about before. Like it is time to carve this government back in size and scope. It's time to take the overall, you can talk about distribution of taxes, but it's time to take the overall tax load down. It's time to take the spending down. It's time to get the government out of the position of deciding who gets money. It's time to unleash economic growth.
But the reason in particular that the CFPB is especially problematic is because it really operates outside of the purview of even Congress.
And then my favorite twist is we have this thing called independent federal agencies. So like, for example, we have this thing called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, which was it's sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control.
It basically shows up with a letter asking the Federal Reserve for hundreds of millions of dollars just so it can operate. And it really is this leviathan of an agency that just goes from company to company without really any enforceability by law. They put out these letters, these memorandum to force corporate action when they don't even go through the Administrative Procedures Act and the Process Act.
You mentioned Mamdani, and you are in New York, sort of speaking on behalf of him to a certain extent. I wonder, though, often we see this, and this is a local election. New York does not operate in a vacuum. It competes with other cities. And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high income taxpayers out of the city? Because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
And it's an independent agency that just gets to run and do whatever it wants.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day?
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants.
What does it do, though?
Basically, terrorize financial institutions, prevent fintech, prevent new competition, new startups that want to compete with the big banks.
Really?
Oh yeah, 100%.
How so?
Sure, the administrator of the CFPB has to come in and testify before Congress, but we all know those hearings. A lot of times, the director is basically trying to run out the clock when it comes to meaningful oversight.
Just by terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I guess debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from. Is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system,
like they did to Kanye.
And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
for what?
For having the wrong politics, for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank. You're not allowed to have.
What if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because they're not politically exposed.
So no.
Under the Biden administration, Mr. Chopra barely answered congressional inquiries about what they were doing and why. But when they would put out publications, memos, letters, it would basically have the force of law on companies before they actually went through the full administrative process. You cannot have an agency operating like that, a rogue agency like this.
The one on the left gets debanked?
I have not heard of a single instance of anybody on the left getting debanked.
Can you tell me what the person that you know did, what they said that got them debanked?
Oh, well, I mean, David Horowitz is a right wing, he's pro-Trump. I mean, he said all kinds of things. He's been very anti-Islamic terrorism. He's been very worried about migration, all these things.
And they debanked him for that?
Yeah, they debanked him. So you get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. By the way, you can't
How is that legal?
Well, exactly.
Because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care. What Zoran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it? Why is that the answer?
So this is the thing. And then you go into this thing of like, well, this is where the government and the companies get intertwined, back to your fascism point, which is there's a constitutional amendment that says the government can't restrict your speech, but there's no constitutional amendment that says the government can't debank you, right? And so if they can't do the one thing, they do the other thing, and then they don't have to debank you. They just have to put pressure on the private company banks to do it. And then the private company banks do it because they're expected to. But the government gets to say, we didn't do it. It was the private company that did it. And of course, JP Morgan can decide who they want to have as customers, of course, right? Because they're a private company.
This is a thing created by Elizabeth Warren. They put it in Dodd-Frank during the Obama administration. It was passed on a party line vote. And before the CFPB, each federal agency dealt with consumer protections. The Democrats' idea was to put it into one agency that operates outside of Congress, really outside of even the purview of the executive branch. And so it's time for that agency to be shut down completely, brought to a close. So my bill would end the CFPB.
And so it's this sleight of hand that happens. So it's basically a privatized sanctions regime that lets bureaucrats do to American citizens the same thing that we do to Iran.
Dear, are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
You know, they've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And Blackstone won't build a new headquarters. And go on and on.
You want to have a workable city? You want to have a city that's vibrant? You want to have a city where the streets are full, where there are things for sale 24 hours a day? Then you need people who can live here and work here.
Well, we've got that right now,
Not
by the way.
people who
I
have
would
to
point
take
out
an
New
hour
York
and a
is
half
New York
in.
is thriving. So right
Well,
now it's doing pretty well, actually.
I'm glad you think they're doing well, because a lot of people are struggling to pay for housing. A lot of people are struggling to pay for groceries. And I got to tell you, mamas and daddies who are facing $25,000 a year to pay for childcare.
Those are national issues. I mean, I know they are the local state, but you can't.
New York City.
Yes, but if you deal with them in that way, by what is always your backup, just tax them more, they will leave.
No. He fully supports scrapping those projects. Fully supports the big, beautiful bill and the massive cuts.
But at the end of the day, this grown-ass man has about the same level of knowledge when it comes to politics as my kid. But it's okay, because I'm here to help and teach everybody. And I was able to find his TikTok, and it's Hello America. Apparently his other TikTok got shut down. Maybe this one's going to get shut down.
Hey, what's up, America? Just so everybody knows, this is my new account here at Hello America Sup. Now, of course, the last account was fun and dandy, but they took it away like sour candy. And so now we have this one, and we also have me on Twitter at Real Sup America. And you can go find me at YouTube at Sup America there. You can find my shining face here.
And he is right.
Sup America.
He is on YouTube. Let's see if there it is. Hello America.
Hey, what's up, America?
And there he goes. Now, I can't say if he's a Trump supporter or not. I just did a quick browse. I clicked on a few videos, and not a channel that I would choose to watch. Maybe he hits it off with some other folks out there, but or maybe he does better on TikTok. But for me, it's a no for me, dog.
He fully supports scrapping those projects. Fully supports the big, beautiful bill and the massive cuts to healthcare subsidies.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. He doesn't actually fully support it. And randomly, ironically, this was one of the videos that I happened to click on where he clearly states he doesn't fully support it. So now I'm wondering, questioning the truth and validity behind your original statement of you actually follow him, because I feel like if you did follow him, you would know the things that he talks about, right?
What's up, America? Donald Trump and Elon Musk with the big, beautiful bill. So as you know, Donald Trump is trying to pass the big, beautiful bill. More than likely, it will succeed in the Senate by 1 or 2 votes. But Elon Musk has now called it a disgusting abomination because of what lies within Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. So in some cases, I'm definitely going to have to side with Elon Musk over Donald Trump. In particular cases, I'll have to side with Trump over Elon Musk. But overall, I think it's a missed opportunity and kind of a floating turd in the toilet bowl. So the good points of the bill are there are no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, and I think no tax on Social Security, but those expire in 2028, so it's kind of bullshit because they're not permanent. Some of the good parts of it are it does extend tax cuts and could provide a decent amount of capital to businesses coming to relocate their shit here, and more jobs possibly. But then there's the matter of $4 trillion almost being added to the national debt, which basically negates every single spending thing that Elon Musk or Donald Trump tried to do. That's Republicans for you. And of course, they're also going to be cutting benefits like food stamps and assistance and all this other shit for American citizens.
You would know the things that he is for and against. Or instead, you only pick and choose the ones that help support your narrative. continue on with your brainwashing rhetoric.
Afforded to us through the Affordable Care Act. The thing that is going to cause people's health care costs to skyrocket in this country in the very near future. He is supportive of all of these things, fully supportive of massive tax cuts for the rich, yet somehow manages to find the strength to get on the internet every single day and complain about the results of all of these policies that he fully supports. And yes, he is one of the 80% now of Americans who believe Donald Trump's policies have actually hurt the economy. He's one of the 80% that believes that, yet he still supports the policies. He will defend them till the end.
Whereas on the flip side, Democrats wouldn't try to cut anything and just continuously add and tack on. It's called budgeting. And the added expense to the national deficit, well, I think there's far more to this conversation that should be had than just that little brief snippet. But talking about SNAP, food stamps, and EBT, again, more content and context. It's about fraud, waste, and abuse. And I don't think that there should be some people out there getting these benefits that they obviously don't deserve, whereas there are some folks who are truly in need getting absolutely nothing. I mean, some of these folks aren't even alive that are still getting these ridiculous amounts of benefits. And can you guess as to how and why that has happened?
And I don't understand where the disconnect is. Are you willing to go bankrupt to support a politician? I can't connect these dots. I cannot. It boggles the mind. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. Really appreciate all my new followers and subscribers. Thanks.
I'm willing to do what it takes to support this country and defend and fight off any opposition, as terrible as it may be, especially considering how the question that I would present to the left would be to Democrats, to progressives, to liberals, to this person here. Are you willing to allow your children to be transitioned in school without your consent? Are you willing to ruin and wreck their bodies, their minds, their lives? Are you willing to throw away all things holy and behave in such blasphemous behavior and activity? Are you willing to let this country be overrun by illegals, criminals who will then assault and possibly murder your now transitioned children? Are you willing to, and I could go on and on and on down the list, folks. If you want to help me out in the comments, feel free to support a politician, which honestly is a moot point, because in this case, obviously you're challenging President Trump. But inversely, if we were to ask the same question for Democrats, you don't have a politician. You don't have a leader. You don't have a policy. You don't have anything, any ground to stand on. All you have is, we don't like Trump. We don't like all the things he said he was going to do that he's actually doing. We don't like MAGA. We don't like Republicans. We don't actually really like America. Whew. Talk about the energy to get online every day and complain. But I do have the energy to get online every day and counter and debate, shine light on the truth. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys later.
Trump, you go back to October of 2024, 44% of the American public viewed him favorably. Now, despite everything, look at this, 43%, which is well within the margin of error of that 44%. And here's the thing to keep in mind. This was good enough to get Trump reelected back in 2024. And Donald Trump is basically at the same point here right now, which I think would surprise a lot of folks, especially a lot of folks on the left who very much disagree with a lot of what Donald Trump has done.
But what do you see is underneath that and driving that? Why is he basically the same?
Okay, to quote the esteemed caller Dennis Green, the former head coach in the National Football League, Donald Trump is who the voters thought he was. What are we talking about here? Well, is Trump doing what he promised in the 2024 campaign? Yes, 52%. The majority of Americans say that Donald Trump is doing what he promised compared to 48% who said no. So what essentially is going on here is the voters expected all of this from Donald Trump. The majority did, and that is why his favorable rating, simply put, has not really moved all that much compared to where it was a year ago. Trump is basically doing what the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president on record, and it's basically where he was a year ago, good enough to get him reelected.